For 30 days, the search never really moved. It stayed in Arizona, in the desert, in the Catalina foothills, inside the drainage tunnels beneath quiet Tucson neighborhoods. Hundreds of FBI agents, search and rescue crews, volunteers, all working the same grid, all circling within an hour of Nancy Guthrie's home. And then something shifted. The FBI picked up the phone and called Mexico. Now hear this clearly. As of this recording, there is no confirmed sighting of Nancy Guthrie in Mexico. Mexican officials have publicly stated there are no verified leads placing her across the border. The Pima County Sheriff has said the same. But agencies don't activate cross-border channels casually. They do it because geography forces their hand. 60 miles is 60 miles. And when you start lining up the pieces, the tunnels, the Rio Rico search warrant, the cryptocurrency ransom, and one deeply personal detail in the Guthrie family history that few people have connected, you begin to understand why some investigators quietly believe Nancy may not have been in Tucson for very long after 3 a.m. on February 1st. You already know the basics. Nancy Guthrie, 84 years old, the mother of Savannah Guthrie, was last seen just before 10 p.m. when she was dropped off at her home in the Catalina foothills outside Tucson. A doorbell camera captured a masked man, roughly 5 feet 9 inches to 5 feet 10 inches. Average build, carrying a 25-liter Ozark Trail hiking backpack. He tampered with the camera. Nancy's blood was found on the front porch. Her phone, wallet, and daily medication were left behind. A pair of gloves turned up about a mile away. DNA was collected, but there was no match in the FBI's CODIS database. Surveillance images later showed the same suspect near the home on prior occasions. This wasn't random. She had been watched. Ransom notes followed. Millions demanded in Bitcoin. Deadlines came and went. The family signaled they were willing to pay. The FBI confirmed communication was ongoing, but there has been no confirmed proof of life. And every hour since has been agony. Somebody knows something. Somebody out there has a detail, a memory, a piece of information that could bring her home. Now, let's talk about what it really means when the FBI turns south. This isn't just a phone call, it's a system. Not the FBI operates legal attaché offices, known internally as legats, inside U.S. embassies around the world. These agents serve as bridges between American law enforcement and foreign authorities. They don't wait for charges. They activate when credible geographic proximity demands it. In this case, that meant coordination with officials in Sonora, Mexico, directly across the Arizona border. According to reporting, the FBI contacted Mexican counterparts about a potential purchase connected to the investigation. That lead was ultimately ruled out, but that tells us two important things. First, investigators were following something specific. Second, they were willing to look beyond the U.S. border very early in the case. Border Patrol was briefed. Checkpoints and surveillance corridors from Tucson to Nogales were reviewed. Public reporting indicates nothing definitive surfaced at official crossings. But here's the part most casual observers miss. Not all crossings happen at checkpoints. When you examine the geography around the Catalina foothills, you find something that hasn't received nearly enough attention: the tunnels. Tucson has an extensive network of flood control tunnels, concrete drainage corridors built beneath neighborhoods to manage monsoon runoff. They're not secret, but they're rarely discussed. They run beneath parts of the city, including areas near Nancy's home. Search teams entered those tunnels during the investigation. Volunteers spent days combing through sections of them. A backpack was recovered and taken into evidence, though authorities later stated it was not believed to be connected to the suspect's hiking pack. Still, the fact that those tunnels were searched at all tells you something. Investigators believed it was plausible that someone could move underground, off surface roads, away from traffic cameras, beyond neighborhood doorbells. The tunnels don't run to Mexico. They're not underground highways. But they do offer a window of untracked movement, and once someone disappears from the surface grid for 20 or 30 minutes, 60 miles becomes a very different distance. The last publicly known surface sighting connected to this case was a speeding vehicle approximately 2.5 miles from Nancy's home around 2:36 a.m. After that, nothing. No confirmed camera capture, no checkpoint record, no public trace. Then there's Rio Rico. Within the first 10 days of the investigation, law enforcement detained a man during a traffic stop roughly 60 miles south of Tucson, about 10 miles from the Nogales border crossing. Search warrants were executed, property and vehicle examined. He was later cleared and released without charges. But ask yourself this: Investigators don't deploy resources 60 miles toward the border on day 10 of a kidnapping for ransom case without a reason. Something, a tip, a transaction, a communication, pointed them south, and that detail has not been fully disclosed. Now consider the ransom itself, not cash, not a wire transfer. Bitcoin. Later, a follow-up note reportedly referenced an even more privacy-focused cryptocurrency. Cryptocurrency erases geography. A wallet address can be accessed from Tucson, Hermosillo, or anywhere with internet access. Demanding crypto doesn't prove the suspect was outside the U.S. But it does suggest forethought, an awareness of financial tracing, jurisdictional reach, and digital anonymity. And then there's how the ransom notes were sent. Some were reportedly sent to media outlets. That's not typical for most domestic kidnapping cases. Usually, demands stay private to avoid unnecessary exposure. Going public increases pressure and risk, unless you believe the authorities can't reach you where you are. Meanwhile, something else happened that deserves attention. When in February, members of a Mexican volunteer group known as Madres Buscadoras, Searching Mothers, crossed into Arizona offering help. These women have built a reputation in Sonora for locating hidden graves and recovering remains in remote desert regions. They requested permission to search certain areas in Tucson. That request was denied. They were told the investigation was best left to professionals. Regardless of how one interprets that decision, it adds another layer to the cross-border dimension of this case, because the Sonoran Desert doesn't recognize political boundaries. And neither does disappearance. There is one more detail that adds a deeper, almost haunting layer to the Mexico angle. Nancy's late husband, Charles Guthrie, died in Mexico in 1988 during a mining trip. He suffered a sudden heart attack at 49 and never returned home. There is no evidence connecting that event to Nancy's disappearance. None. But Mexico is not just a line on a map for this family. It is part of their history, part of their grief. So, when investigators turned south, the geography became personal. Now we arrive at the central question. Where is Nancy Guthrie? The last known trace connected to this case sits around 2:36 a.m. After that, silence. Some investigators, speaking off the record, believe she may have been moved quickly out of Tucson. Others argue the route likely went north toward Phoenix rather than south, citing heavy patrol along Interstate 19. Both possibilities remain open. What we know is this: the investigation expanded toward the U.S.-Mexico border corridor. Cross-border coordination was activated, financial tracing is ongoing, genealogical DNA analysis is reportedly being pursued to identify the suspect through family connections if necessary. As of now, no suspect has been publicly charged. Rewards remain active, including a substantial offer from the family for information leading to Nancy's recovery. Here's what to watch: any shift in official language from Mexican authorities, any update on genealogical DNA results, any breakthrough in cryptocurrency tracing, any expansion or narrowing of the geographic scope. Nancy Guthrie is 84. She relies on daily medication that was left behind. Her family has publicly acknowledged the possibility of the worst, while continuing to hope for the best. And somewhere, someone knows something. If you have information about Nancy Guthrie's whereabouts or about the individual responsible for her abduction, contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI or submit a tip at tips.fbi.gov. We will continue following this case closely.